Great. We're going to go ahead and get started. Again, thank you so much for being here. It is my great pleasure to introduce you to our wonderful moderator, Ilona Sabo. Ilona, if you could kick us off. Professor Sachs has notified us that he's running a few minutes late. So if you could do your introduction, and we'll start with Mercedes, and we'll have Jeff speak after her, if that would be okay. Apologies for the last minute change.
Sure. So thank you very much. Welcome, everybody, distinguished panelists, partners, and participants to our side event at the High Level Political Forum, presentation of initial findings of the Science Panel for the Amazon. So before we start, I would just like to let you know that we'll have simultaneous translation to Portuguese and Spanish speakers. So please click at the interpretation icon in the bottom of your Zoom. By way of introduction, my name is Ilona Sabo. I'm the president of the Igarapé Institute in Brazil, a global think and do tank founded in 2011 and committed to delivering data-driven and evidence-based solutions on issues related to public, digital, and climate security. So I'm your moderator for today's sessions. So we are gathered here to discuss the future of the Amazon basin, the world's largest tropical forest, spanning over 7 million square kilometers and 8 countries plus 1 territory. As you all know, the Amazon is vital to the stability of the world's climate and home to about 10% of the world's biodiversity. It is home to around 40 million inhabitants, including more than 2 million indigenous peoples. Yet, the Amazon is facing dangerous threats, especially of deforestation and degradation, which the vast majority is illegal. So global demand for cattle, soy, minerals, flora, fauna threatens the ecosystems and biodiversity of the basin and the world. So given these urgent challenges, the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, SDSN, has convened the Science Panel for the Amazon. So the panel includes approximately 200 of the world's top scientists who've assembled an unprecedented 33 chapters report. It is the first of its kind and sets out a host of bold evidence-based recommendations to promote conservation and sustainable development. We have an outstanding and renowned group of speakers joining us today to discuss some of these core findings of the panel's report. So the report is a very serious piece of work, hundreds of pages of detailed findings and maps, accompanied by short summaries. As your moderator, let me just set out the agenda for the day, a quite ambitious one. So today's session will be opened by Professor Jeffrey Sachs. We will just postpone a few minutes his remarks. He's just going to join us in a few minutes, but he's the convener of the Science Panel for the Amazon, the president of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and a university professor at Columbia University. So we'll then turn to the Science Panel for the Amazon with inputs from some of our lead authors and members of the Science Steering Committee, including Mercedes Bustamante, Marielos Peña-Claros, Simone Ataide, and Ricardo Abramovay. After this, we'll have a message from Mr. Gregorio Mirabal, coordinator of COICA. Following his message, we're going to have President Santos, Guilherme Leal, and Valerie Hickey. They will comment the findings from the perspectives of governments, business, and international community. We'll then have roughly 25 minutes for Q&A, and we'll have a short closing remarks by Emma Torres. So finally, we'll be taking these questions from participants. So if you can send them through the chat and Q&A function, we'll just hope to get to as many as possible. So we'll start, we'll wait for Professor Sachs to arrive. So we will start with the introduction of Mercedes Bustamante, co-chair of the Science Panel for the Amazon Science Steering Committee, professor at the University of Brasilia, and a member of the Brazilian Academy of Science. So the floor is yours, Mercedes.
Thank you very much, Ilona, for this kind introduction. Good afternoon to everyone. So on behalf of the SPA Authors and Steering Committee, we'd like to thank the SPA Strategic Committee and the High Level Political Forum for the opportunity to be here today. We expect to show in the 4 very brief presentations that the future we want is intertwined with the Amazon we want. The next slide, please. Before we present some of the key messages, we would like to highlight the process of co-design and generation of knowledge that is a hallmark of the SPA. The integration of diverse visions of the future of the Amazon is critical to developing common principles and values based on the respecting natural limits. The panel mobilizes a network of scientists, communities, practitioners, and managers across the region and disciplines through the organization of workshops and webinars and the engagement of multiple voices. The next one, please. We live in the context of multiple and interrelated crises, such as climate change, biodiversity decline, and the COVID-19 pandemic. Science tells us that we face potentially irreversible and catastrophic risk for humans. However, science is also showing us that there is a narrow window of opportunity to change its trajectory. Action is not only needed, it must be exponential, and it is possible. We have scalable solutions, and they can give us better outcomes for society, economy, health, equity, and stability. The next one, please. So the fate of the Amazon is central to the solution to the global crisis. Amazon ecosystems represent a large component of the global carbon cycle. They account for about 20% of the terrestrial productivity. Undisturbed Amazonian rainforests act as a net carbon sink, but the sink may be declining over time. The Amazon basin is one of the most critical elements of the global climate system. The Amazon is a significant source of water and energy to the atmosphere and strongly influences atmospheric circulation patterns both within and outside the tropics. It produces the rainfalls that results in the largest river discharge on Earth. Next one, please. The modern Amazon basin reflects complex geological and biological processes operating over many millions of years. We can identify more than 50 vegetation types from the high Andes to the low parts of the Amazon. Even in poor soils, high productivity rates are maintained thanks to the efficient mechanisms to recycle nutrients mediated by biodiversity. As an example, there are more species of flowering plants in 100 square meters of Amazon rainforest than in the whole Europe. The resilience of Amazonian ecosystems is dependent on these complex interactions of this extraordinary, unique, and irreplaceable biodiversity. The Amazon is still a global biophysical reactor, but is showing changes in its functioning in responses to local, regional, and global pressures. Deforestation and forest degradation are two consequences of multiple drivers as land use changes and anthropogenic fires. Currently, 18% of the Amazon is deforested and 7% of it is degraded. Deforestation and degradation are also creating large extent of forest edges. And forest edges present modified microclimate and flammability, resulting in a spiral of degradation and significant carbon losses because of the high tree mortality. Disturbances have put more than 8,000 endemic plants and 2,300 animals at high risk of extinction, affecting forest functioning, productivity, and resilience. Next one, please. Yeah. That's for... Sorry, I think I missed. Okay, sorry, I thought it was outside. Deforestation and degradation are not only detrimental to ecosystem health, but also to human health, through increasing risk of existing infection diseases and the emergence of new ones. Changes in fire regime are increasing air pollution with social and economic consequences. The next one. So, Amazon is one of the most important tipping elements in Earth system. Its disruption can lead to cascading effects on global systems. The simultaneous impact of climate change, extreme events, land use, drought stress, and tree mortality pose a crucial question. How much forest clearing and in which locations could result in crossing tipping points, leading to persistent novel ecosystems with low biomass over large areas with potential global negative impacts? Next one. So, finalizing, the SPA consolidated a new understanding of the responses of the Amazonian ecosystems to change happening at unprecedented rates, and is pointing out the urgency to address solutions. In the coming presentations, my colleagues will focus on the social diversity of the Amazon and the crucial role of the Amazonian peoples, the opportunities in landscape-level conservation and restoration initiatives, and how a new economy can support the Amazonia we want. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Ilona.
Thank you very much, Mercedes. So we'll continue with the panel findings. So I'll just invite Marielos Peña Claros, co-chair of the Science Panel for the Amazon Science Steering Committee, and the professor at Wageningen University in the Netherlands. Please correct me if I pronounce the university name wrong, Marielos. Please, the floor is yours.
Ilona, sorry, now we have actually Simone Ataidi.
Oh, sorry then. So we're going to have Simone Ataidi, lead author of the Science Panel for the Amazon and professor at Florida International University, with over 20 years of experience across the Amazon. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ilona. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm going to present a brief summary of the main initial findings of sociocultural aspects from the SPA. Next. So the Amazon is a place of rich biodiversity, as Mercedes has presented to us. And this rich biodiversity that Amazon holds is connected to also a huge social diversity or cultural diversity. The Amazon has been inhabited by diverse indigenous peoples for at least 12,000 years. And these indigenous peoples, along with other local communities, have significantly shaped Amazonian ecosystems, biodiversity, and agrobiodiversity, the diversity of agricultural crops, through diverse management practices that are deeply rooted in their worldviews, knowledge systems, languages, and cultural backgrounds. Today, the Amazon is home to more than 40 million people that are living in both rural and urban areas across the 8 Amazonian nations, plus the French Guiana. Of this total, more than 2 million are indigenous peoples, consisting of more than 350 distinctive ethnic groups and nations, including some 60 groups who still live in voluntary isolation. Next one, yes. So these indigenous lands, traditional territories, and protected areas conserve nearly 50% of the Amazon and shows the great potential of the Amazon to conserve socio-ecological connectivity. Indigenous lands, the traditional territories, and the protected areas, they work as buffer areas to prevent illegal deforestation and the spread of forest fires, as well as climate change mitigation and adaptation. But these areas are under threat by several activities that include infrastructure, agriculture, and ranching expansion, mining, and oil extraction. More than 80% of the area occupied by indigenous peoples is forested, and 35% of all Latin Americans' remaining intact forests are occupied by indigenous peoples. These numbers, according to a recent FAO report. These numbers are a clear indication of this close link between cultural and biological diversity in Amazonia, and also between human and environmental health, which need to be connected. They highlight indigenous peoples and local communities as crucial partners for ongoing biodiversity conservation, as well as forest management, fire prevention, and restoration initiatives, as Marielle is going to present to us next. Next slide, please. So it's very important to link social justice with sustainable development and innovative governance arrangements in attainment of the sustainable development goals. We need to strengthen regulatory frameworks and institutional procedures that protect indigenous peoples and local communities' land and water rights, which are critical to both social justice and the conservation of the Amazon's linked social biodiversity. These connections also should be strengthened between indigenous peoples and local communities, lands and territories, municipalities, and the department headquarters, to promote networks and supply chains for the products of the social biodiversity. Next one. Another aspect that we are highlighting in the SPA is the importance to value and recognize indigenous languages, which are critically endangered in the Amazon. Today, there are over 300 languages spoken in the Amazon. Can you believe that? Much less than at the time of European arrival. And these indigenous languages are critically endangered by some of the same forces that threaten Amazonian biodiversity. Just as these languages, cultures, and worldviews are in danger of disappearing, so are the important associated knowledge systems that are linked to and sustain Amazonian biodiversity. So we need to, a key recommendation from the SPA is that policies for revitalizing, strengthening, and conserving indigenous languages need to be better integrated to policies to conserve Amazonian biodiversity. It's a very important message here. Also, we need to recognize the role of women, which have played a very important role in Amazonian conservation development, including the maintenance of Amazonian agrobiodiversity, food security, and sovereignty. Very important today, especially considering the COVID-19 crisis. And the contribution of indigenous women, as well as youth organizations in knowledge systems, territorial management, and resource stewardship should be recognized. And we need to guarantee special support to their participation in decision-making and management initiatives. Next one. And finally, Amazonian peoples are already leading the design and implementation of sustainable solutions in the Amazon. In the SPA, we present a set of numerous examples across the Amazon where these initiatives are already taking place. We're sharing these stories to inspire the future of the Amazon we want. Despite the fact that the insights and interests of local people have been overlooked, they are generating alternative approaches to manage and restore landscapes, elaborating new marketing systems and forms of governance. So we recognize that, we recommend that the participation of indigenous peoples and local communities in decision-making and in the design of sustainable solutions for the Amazon needs to be ensured and strengthened. That's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Simone. Now we have Marielos Peña-Claros, co-chair of the Science Panel for the Amazon Science Steering Committee and a professor at the Wageningen University in the Netherlands. The floor is yours, Marielos.
Thank you, Ilona. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you again. Good morning, good afternoon. I will highlight some of the key messages related to the conservation and restoration opportunities that we have identified in the SPA report. Can I have the next slide? Yes. As we have heard and we all know, the Amazon has high diversity in biological, social, and cultural terms. The threats to biodiversity and the systems functioning are also very diverse. Think about agriculture expansion, mining, hunting, illegal trade. These threats originate from within the basin, but also from outside the basin. Therefore, there are no single or simple solutions to solve the Amazon socio-environmental problems. Instead, a broad set of initiatives need to be adopted, replicated, adjusted to local conditions, and scaled up. The participation of Amazonian peoples, like you just heard, in this process is key for guaranteeing the success of such initiatives. It is also very important to realize that the success of any initiative promoting the conservation of the Amazon also depends on global actions that address climate change and that address improving governance of the supply chains to avoid exporting deforestation, river fragmentation, and other environmental harms. We need to focus both on landscape level conservation and on restoration initiatives. The need to conserve forests and water bodies is probably more urgent than ever, and we can do so through strict protection or through sustainable use of the resources. Restoration is important to reverse the damage already done to terrestrial and aquatic ecosystems, but restoration actions can be costly and complex to implement. So it's actually better to avoid deforestation and degradation so that we don't need to take restorative actions. So then the question is, but how can we stop deforestation? How can we stop degradation? To stop deforestation, we need certainly initiatives that include a broad and coordinated suite of measures implemented at various scales and jurisdictions. If we take, for example, if we take as an example the deforestation program that the Brazilian government implemented between 2005 and 2014, there were lots of actions being taken at the municipal level, at the state level, at the national level. And for that time, it did work. In terms of stopping degradation, preventing forest fires is a priority. Fire prevention requires changes in farming practices, monitoring of fire events, forecasting drought intensity and fire risk. And we certainly also need well-trained and well-equipped fire brigades. About 30% of the Amazon basin has been either deforested or degraded. So we are talking about 800,000 square kilometers. This means that there are plenty of opportunities to implement restoration. To move towards a successful restoration, we need to identify priority areas through participatory approaches involving local peoples and governments. In the chapters dealing with restoration, we provide an overview of the restoration options currently available for the Amazon. These options are relevant and technically feasible for the different contexts that we find in the Amazon basin. The approach to be used depends on the type of disturbance to which the area has been subjected to, and it depends as well on the restoration aims. Restoration can only be successful if it provides benefits to people through restoring and creation of sustainable and socially economic activities. This is very important, so I would like to provide two examples of restoration actions that can be undertaken. One of them is restoring agricultural productivity to reduce deforestation. Restoring the productivity of abandoned or degraded agricultural land is very important to cover the current and future demands for food, fiber, and other products. Studies have estimated that if we will manage to restore this agricultural land already being used or misused, maybe, there will not be need to convert additional forested areas into agricultural land. As the previous speakers have mentioned, several alternatives to restore productivity are currently being designed and tried out and implemented by local peoples and organizations. Think, for example, agroforestry systems, improved shifts in cultivation, better practices for cattle ranching. Another action that we could take refers to restoring fisheries and curbing overfishing. Fish provides millions of people in the Amazon with primary sources for protein and other essential nutrients. Restoring fisheries, therefore, involves the development and enforcement of sustainable fishing practices and regulations, restoring and protecting critical habitats, and improved monitoring. Now, studies have also shown that co-management can be very effective, especially when responsibilities rest with local users and governments. So I think one of the key messages here is that local peoples and local governments are really very important to promote conservation and restoration in the Amazon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marielos. Now we have Ricardo Abramovay, lead author of the Science Panel for the Amazon and a professor at the University of São Paulo. He's the author of the book, Amazonia for a Nature-Based Knowledge Economy. Please, Ricardo, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ilona. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. The third part of the Science Panel is about solutions. And when we think about solutions, bioeconomy comes immediately to mind. But one of the main paradoxes of our time is that the Amazon is yet far from the social, scientific, technological frontier of the contemporary bioeconomy. the sustainable use and added value of its social biodiversity is the main path for it to continue offering the world ecosystem services essential for the life on the planet. At the same time, this is where the opportunities to improve the living conditions of rural, forest-based, and urban populations lie. Bioeconomy is important not only in creating opportunities for the rural and forest inhabitants, but also as a source of solutions for urban challenges by the means of nature-based solutions. Making the sustainable use of the forest and rivers social biodiversity the epicenter of Amazonian economic development implies recognizing the importance of the knowledge accumulated by its forest peoples, as well as valuing current regenerative practices that are gaining increasing importance in the region. There is a rich spiritual and material culture that is under threat and that must be protected and valued. Next, please. The social and economic base for sustainable use of forests and rivers is broad and diverse. It involves traditional activities of indigenous peoples and local communities, family farming systems marked by land uses that protect and enhance biodiversity, but also commodity agriculture focused on the production of grain and meat, which is increasingly facing the challenge of contributing to keeping the forest standing and the rivers flowing. Until now, cattle ranching and soy plantations are among the main drivers of deforestation in the Amazon. It's urgent that the sector also change its productive methods to contribute to social biodiversity. Next, please. The growing world attention to the advance of deforestation has resulted in the broad mobilization of diversified social and political forces in the Amazon that seek alternatives to predatory forms of use of the region. Not only international agreements such as the Leticia Pact stand out in this context, but also the role of both subnational governments and coalitions made up of civil society organizations, companies, scientists, and the indigenous peoples and local communities leadership in the governance of the transition to a nature-based knowledge economy. Next, please. One of the most important premises for the emergence of a new bioeconomy is to change the conception and forms of implementation of infrastructure planned for the Amazon, meeting the basic needs of its populations, high-quality internet connections, agile transport service, and high-quality information to improve the commercialization of products are basic objectives to which, in most cases, the current infrastructure does not attend. Next, please. The Amazon has today several educational and research organizations working for the nature-based knowledge economy. With the appropriate level of institutional investments and international collaboration, a new bioeconomy of standing forests and flowing rivers can flourish, and the contribution of the scientific organizations of the Amazon itself is essential. Next, please. The biggest obstacle to the sustainable use of the Amazon is in the prevailing view among the economic and political elites of our countries, which to this day see the region as a kind of empty space to be occupied by agricultural activities and conventional mining. And the data show that these conventional activities were not able to bring well-being to the populations of the Amazon and have become drivers of forest destruction. Bioeconomy is the main way for the Amazon to deliver ecosystem service from which the life on Earth depends, and to improve the well-being of the 40 million people who live in the region. Many thanks.
Thank you so much, each of you, Mercedes, Simone, Marielos, and Ricardo, for agreeing to share your reflections with us today. So I'm sure we'll have a very fascinating discussion in the end of the session. But before, we are very lucky to have with us Professor Jeffrey Sachs, the convener of the Science Panel for the Amazon, the president of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, and the university professor at Columbia University. So over to you, Professor Sachs.
Ilona, thank you so much. Thanks to all of you. I apologize for joining late. I've caught the last two of the presentations, which are absolutely wonderful. I'm in Athens in a conference and was speaking in a session that just ran late. But let me tell you how remarkable your output is. This is, without question, the most comprehensive, in-depth, cutting-edge, holistic vision of the Amazon that exists, and how vital and how remarkable that you, the 200 or so scientists, have put this together with such commitment, clarity, passion, and speed because of the urgency. The Science Panel for the Amazon was launched with a kind of urgency because we saw a political process that was running absolutely rapidly in the wrong direction, a very dangerous direction, a direction of lack of enforcement of laws on the books, lack of insight that we just heard from Ricardo about what sustainable Amazon really means for the inhabitants of the region, lack of awareness of the near tipping point state of degradation of the Amazon, certainly lack of any of the depth that you have brought to the fore in this amazing volume. And I think that the payoff, we will make sure that it is huge with this vital resource that you have created. Now we'll have the public consultation, but soon we'll be delivering this volume to world leaders. I will make sure absolutely it's sitting on the desks of the Secretary General of the UN, the leaders of the G20 countries, including, of course, countries of the Amazon basin, the Pope Francis, who, of course, in the Synod on the Amazon that I was honored to be part of together with Carlos Nobre, will welcome this report. And the Vatican is so profoundly committed to sustainable development and the sustainability of the peoples of the Amazon also, that I'm sure that this will be received with enormous commitment and gratitude. We'll make sure that this is heard around the world. And it's so timely because we are entering an intensive diplomatic period now. I'm on my way to the pre-summit of the UN Food System Summit. There'll be a pre-summit at FAO, July 26 to 28. And there will be a number of world leaders at this summit. I will have hard copies of the draft report to share with the leaders there. Then there will be in September, the UN Food System Summit. In October, the opening of the Kunming COP15 of the Convention on Biological Diversity. In November, of course, is Glasgow COP26 on climate. And this report is central for all of those issues and for all of the global reorientation towards sustainable development. Then keep in mind that, and I think very important, the G20 in the coming year, this year it's led by Italy, in the coming year it will be led by Indonesia. Indonesia is another country that knows about the fragility of the rainforest ecosystems. Another country that shares with the Amazon basin some of the critical challenges of reorientation, of the need for financing solutions, financing sustainability. So I want to use this effort of all of us, of the SPA, to help inform the G20 process during the year of the Indonesian presidency. Emma and I have also been in discussion with the leaders of the Congo Basin, President Tshisekedi of the Democratic Republic of Congo, and the 13 countries of the Congo Basin are well aware of the SPA. They know about the Science Panel for the Amazon, and there is strong interest in using the guidance and the wisdom that you have demonstrated in creating a science panel for the Congo Basin in the same way. I hope we can call on some of you for guidance and leadership in that area. But what you have done is already inspiring other regions in Southeast Asia and in the Congo Basin in Africa to do the same. And what a template you have made. It's so beautiful. I'm leafing through the chapters. Of course, I haven't read them in detail yet, but the framing, the deep history of the region, the deep geology, the biodiversity, the history of the peoples, the history of the economic exploitation, and the solutions. It's a thrill to have it all together. So I will stop here because I would go on and on saying the same thing, that I am so excited for what you have accomplished. And I see this as an extremely powerful tool. I want your suggestions and guidance as clearly posed as possible for how we can use finance. This is where I can come in. I can come in to help mobilize new financing, new models of financing, new models of community financing, new models of sustainability, financing of the standing rainforest. But I need all of the wisdom here. And believe me, I will be your champion for this cause. We will be working on mobilizing new paid-in capital for the Inter-American Development Bank, among others, and other kinds of innovative financial approaches in the immediate next months. So this will be, I think, a way to turn the wisdom into real scaled programmatic efforts. That's, of course, our profound commitment. So friends, thank you to all. Andrea, thank you for co-leading with Carlos, and to all of the wonderful colleagues in this process. You've created an absolute marvel that is a tremendous breakthrough. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Sachs, and thank you for the good news. We couldn't agree more on your kudos to the report. These scientists have done an amazing work. So we're very excited to go through the initial findings, but also it's very important that you highlighted the urgency of just how urgent we need to find solutions, but also how timely this report is. And the time of the launch will be able to inform these very high level events that are crucial and will determine the future of the region. But also super happy to know on the next steps that you're bringing this model for other regions. So let us know more when the time comes.
Wonderful.
So now, yeah, we'll be very happy to just cheer and just support the other endeavors. So before handing over to our next set of very impressive speakers, we'll hear a message from Jose Gregorio Diaz Mirabal, the General Coordinator of the Coordination of the Indigenous Organizations of the Amazon Basin and a member of the Strategic Committee of the Science Panel for the Amazon. Should we try once again just to have it with sound?
Was there sound that time?
No, unfortunately
Still
not.
no.
So, yeah.
Can we maybe go to the next speaker and I will try to fix this? I am sincerely sorry that it's not working.
Well, no problem. We try to hear from Jose Gregorio Diaz Mirabal at the end. So we are very lucky to have with us still after this amazing set of speakers, very, very, I would say, impressive speakers to come. So I would also invite the first one of them, President Juan Manuel Santos, former president of Colombia, Nobel Peace Prize laureate, and a member of the Science Panel for the Amazon Strategic Committee. So they, together with Guilherme Leal and Valerie Hickey, will also provide some initial reactions on the findings that we just heard from. So please, President Santos, over to you.
Thank you very much. And I would like to start by echoing the words of Professor Sachs. I read very superficially the 33 conclusions and recommendations and the different analysis that was made in this report. And I was very, very impressed. I never imagined that in such a short amount of time, such rich information could be gathered, analyzed, and digested. And it's of great, great importance. I want to also thank Professor Sachs for his passion and his involvement in this initiative. I've been a witness of his passion for the sustainable development in general, but for this particular report in particular. In particular, I would like to stress something that comes out from my own experience. I tried many times when I was president for 8 years to bring together the 8 countries and for the 8 countries to work together and be effective in the implementation of the decisions. And it was very difficult. It was very difficult for political reasons, lack of coordination. So I remember that we had the initiative of we called it the AAA, Andes, Amazon, and Atlantic, and a corridor that we wanted to create to protect all the indigenous communities that lived in that corridor, and of course the Amazon basin. We had it all set for a summit. There was a change in the government of Ecuador, and suddenly it simply didn't follow through because the new president of Ecuador at that time wanted something different. I bring this as an example of the need of a political will and political coordination. Unfortunately, right now in Latin America, and especially in these 8 countries that are part of the Amazon, you don't see that political leadership. You don't see any of those presidents taking the baton and driving the force, for example, of the cause of the Amazon. My president, and I talk for Colombia, the Leticia Pact was made in my country, in Leticia. Well, my president suddenly said it was very important, but when he has to deliver, for example, by ratification of the Escazú Treaty, he does not deliver for political reasons. So I think that this information is extremely important to give more importance to evidence and science over politics and ideology. And it should be, in a way, presented with that purpose. There's so much information, and things are so, when you digest it and you simplify it, such powerful messages that we have to start repeating that in order for that to have a constructive political effect. In a way, depoliticize or taking ideology out of the discussion and politicizing the discussion in the sense of making everybody aware of how important saving the Amazon is. I think this is, and what this report does is gives us the tools, the ammunition to fulfill, to perform that very important task. Professor Sachs was mentioning many summits that we have, for example, this year, the Food Summit, the Biodiversity Summit, the summit in Glasgow. As a matter of fact, I think that we have at a certain moment in time, and the sooner the better, to merge all these efforts because they are very, very much interconnected. Saving biodiversity and climate change are one of the same challenge, and we have to start merging them. And I think it would be very important if in all of these summits, the effect of the Amazon, of what it would take, and what it would cost if we don't act on saving the Amazon, for example, in climate change, or the effect on the biodiversity, that would, in a way, multiply the effect of this report. I think that the idea of Professor Sachs of putting the report in the desk of every head of state is what is needed, but not only at the head of each head of state. Every Congress, every parliament, and every governor and every mayor should have this report and act upon it, because also as has been said so many times, you need a coordination of international bodies, national bodies, and at the state level and the municipal level, and of course the indigenous communities and all the civil society and social communities that live in the Amazon. If we don't have an effort that is coordinated in that way, then we will not be effective. We have big enemies of what we're doing, most of them illegal activities, and therefore, and in my own experience, when I had to confront this problem, bringing in with real political will, the justice systems and the police systems in the countries, also to combat the illegality that is causing so much damage. In my country, we had the report last week of deforestation. Again, deforestation increased by a good percentage. And so we need to act much faster and much more effectively. And therefore, this report, if we simplify the messages and give the tools and the information to the right people, I think the effect would be extremely, extremely beneficial. I would end up by saying something about the indigenous communities and how important it is to preserve them, to protect them, and to, in a way, use them constructively. My experience with them, the first time I entered into contact with them was when I became Minister of Defense back in the year 2006. And they started to teach me their culture, their concept of justice, their concept of maintaining the environment. And I fell in love with them. And I started studying and understanding what their culture was. And this is what we need in the world today. Many of the concepts are very simple, but very powerful. So if we also make their knowledge and their culture better known to the world, the effect of protecting them would be much enhanced. I truly believe, because it was my own experience. I even went, when I became president, to ask for their permission to go to Congress to become president, because I was so impressed by the way they taught me the most simple things in the most powerful way, that I think that that effect worldwide would be very beneficial also for the world to know how important it is to protect the Amazon and protect the people who live in the Amazon. But again, congratulations to the 200 scientists. I think you did a great job. Thank you, Professor Sachs, and thank you, all of you who are doing this great work of saving the most important region in the world, which is the Amazon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Santos. I think you touched upon so many important issues, but thank you for highlighting the central role of indigenous communities, because I think without them, there is no forest, and we know that where they are, the forest is more preserved. And I think they have a very, very central role in anything that we think or just dream for this region. But also, I think the importance of the science-based public policy. So we will count on you to bring this message to the leaders of all powers of the states, of the region and the world, because I think, as you said, it's a global common good, the Amazon. And also thank you for highlighting the whole of society approach that is needed to go forward and implementing solutions. So thank you very much.
Let me add just two small points. There is an initiative called the 30-30, to have 30% of the world protected as protected territory by the year 2030. It would be a great initiative to include in that initiative a much higher percentage for the Amazon. And I think this initiative is going well. I've seen in many governments that they are supporting the initiative, but making a special case for the Amazon would be, I think, extremely important. But I stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You got our support. So just if you can move with this recommendation, we'll just go after you in the support. So now we're very lucky also to have Guilherme Leal, the co-founder and co-chairman of Natura & Co, and also a member of the science panel for the Amazon Strategic Committee. Please, Guilherme.
Hi, Lona. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here at this panel and an honor to follow President Santos. I would start congratulating and applaud once again the Science Panel for the Amazon Initiative and the fundamental role that this very diverse, rich group has played in facing a challenge the size of the Amazon and producing a so rich report. This event and this type of connection and reflections promoted by the SPA between scientists, businessmen, civil society, indigenous peoples, local communities, and state representatives are the only and most efficient ways of transforming the Amazon, a vital region for Brazilians like me, for our Latin American neighbors, and assuredly for the whole world, as said, but it's always needed to reinforce. I speak out here the complex ecosystem gear which absence impedes any possible future for the Earth. The magnitude of the draft report prepared by more than 200 preeminent scientists from the Amazon region, with its 33 chapters, gives an exact measure of the challenge we face. However, the answers are just as complex. One of the biggest challenges facing Amazon is to be so heterogeneous, to be always plural. The first step is to recognize its diversity and of interdependent realities for re-agreeing the course of a development that meets social needs and the purpose of preserving the wealth, the value of the Amazon biome. It is to welcome their multiple voices in a movement that needs to be continuous and built up through dialogue and sharing of views. Given the inherent complexity of preparing a development proposal, it is essential to understand what is happening in Amazon. An Amazon with at least 4 different stand structures and occupation patterns, as described by Adalberto Verissimo, our dear fellow. The conserved Amazon, covered by a rich and biodiverse rainforest, the arc of deforestation, the portion marked by lawlessness, and under attack by economic activities, most often predatory. The anthropized region, which has been already converted and dominated by the production of commodities, such as agriculture and mining. Finally, the Amazon of the cities, which includes large urban areas and small villages scattered in various municipalities. Those 4 different patterns of stand structure and occupation are firmly based on deforestation economy on destruction. To avoid this fate, we urgently need to unite ourselves for an economy of life. The draft report of this panel clearly demonstrates that Amazon does not allow simplifications. The Amazon is complex with diverse voices and perspectives, uncountable conflicts, interests, and possibilities. We are native peoples, quilombolas, riverside dwellers, miners, farmers, urban populations, migrants, activists, religious, military, politicians, and businessmen. We are 35 million Amazonians who have a determinant part of our future as nations in the rainforest. We are here precisely to expand our collective capacity to speak up and listen about the Amazon, and thus reestablishing the course of development for the region. In the light of science, as Ilona mentioned, reinforce the view of President Santos and people's life. In the same sense, we started a movement in Brazil called Uma Concertação pela Amazônia, which many of you are part of, which dialogues with previous studies and reflections, such as the reference works of distinguished researchers, such as Berta Becker, Beto Verissimo, and Daniele Celentano. Uma Concertação pela Amazônia is essentially characterized by plurality. It is a network of more than 250 leaders who come together from the need to institutionalize a plural and democratic debate on the development path of the region. Dialogue that is not common those days. We connect policymakers, academics, entrepreneurs, politicians, and local communities for synergy and positive impact solutions. We believe that knowledge, attentive listening, and the creation of the new political spaces, such as this one, can ultimately lead us to overcome a predatory and colonizing logic. The first response as a stakeholder, I propose to reflect on the whole of business in this spiral of transformation that we have thought. Companies tend to reflect the society's expectation of changes and are major generators of innovation and wealth. And in this 21st century, global society realized the scale of the climate crisis, the massive loss of biodiversity, and the unacceptable social inequality. The relationships between consumers, suppliers, and investors are and will remain being increasingly dictated by environmental and social governance mechanisms, and the markets are already pricing this. The need for governance is the second response as a stakeholder I propose for reflection. In this scenario, it is important to reinforce, as another time, as President Santos said, the effective action of governments in terms of planning, inspection, and formulation of public policies. And this is the first condition for opportunities for sustainable development to be established. Finally, as a third response as a stakeholder, it's necessary to provide, as our friend Ricardo Abramovay said, quality infrastructure to the region that could help to fight climate crisis, reduce the loss of biodiversity, and give decent access to primary education, health, and security services too. The governance and cooperation, scientific knowledge, and quality infrastructure with meaningful purpose indicate the complex way for the development in the Amazon. Another time, thank you all that involved in the report of the SPA, a fantastic tool to enhance the quality of life of this population and the richness of the Amazon as a whole. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Guilherme, and thank you for being such a champion for the private sector awareness and I think understanding that an economy of life, a green economy in the region is abundant, is possible, and is the future. So thank you for bringing the future to present and for engaging the whole of society in this debate. So I wish that all your endeavors in this sense will be just bigger and bigger each day. So now we're gonna hear from Valerie Hicking, Practice Manager from the Environment and Natural Resources Global Practice of the World Bank. Please, Valerie, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ilona, and good afternoon, everybody. I apologize that I'm coming to you from my car, but unfortunately, in these interesting days of working from home, when your electricity goes out and your Wi-Fi goes away and the local cell towers aren't working, you have to get in your car and drive somewhere very quickly to get service. But of course, that kind of a problem is nothing compared to the COVID that is ravaging the countries and the communities across the Amazon basin and across Latin America. And my heart and the heart of everybody at the World Bank goes out to everybody. And of course, it's not just COVID, it's also climate change. And these twin emergencies prove more than ever how important it is that science has a very, very strong voice in decision making. And that's why I send huge congratulations to the Sustainable Development Solutions Network for convening 200 scientists to sit together, even in a virtual world, and to come up with a new thinking on what has to happen in the Amazon. This report, the 33 chapters, really get to the heart of a terrible, terrible paradox in the Amazon that we don't spend enough time thinking about. And that's the fact that you have some of the poorest people in the world living side by side with the greatest natural capital riches that the world has. I always think of the state of Amazonas in Brazil. It's the third poorest state in the country of Brazil. And yet it contains 1/4 of the entire Amazon basin. And it has managed to protect 96% of its basin. How can that be? And that speaks to the fact that we need a new approach. And that's what this report is beginning to tease us, to beginning to help us think through. It's a new approach where we don't just think about the Amazon as a global public war zone where you have people who want conservation fighting side by side against people who want development. And instead, we begin to think about the Amazon as a place where there's a community first approach, where it's the local and indigenous communities, those communities and families on whose shoulders we ask to protect this global asset. We get to put their future first, and we get to put the future in their hands. And that's a future that integrates conservation and development. And this is something that we have seen. The World Bank has been engaged in working across the Amazon for the past 30 years and more. And we have seen proof of concept that integrating conservation and development can work. You can grow the forest while you create a pathway out of poverty for those communities in the forest. And we think this is incredibly, incredibly important. And it's the same idea that drives the GEF-financed Amazon Sustainable Landscapes program that we're currently managing across the Amazon basin. It's the idea of investing directly in micro and small businesses that sustainably use the natural capital riches to create a path to the middle class for those communities, while also making sure that we're investing in protected area management, making sure that that Amazon is better. And the ASL, the Amazon Sustainable Landscapes Program, much like what these 33 chapters conclude, is that there are two things that matter. One is that we need to accelerate the contagion of good practice and good ideas. And that good practice and good ideas come from the people in the Amazon. We don't have to wait for outsiders to come with answers. The answers are homegrown and they're there. And those answers have to drive and have to accelerate progress through collaboration. And it's not just about creating a coalition of the willing, people who would like to do something. Good intentions aren't enough. This is about the collaboration of the working. People in the public sector, whether it's at federal or national levels, whether it's at state government, local governments, small municipalities, whether it's the private sector working together with the public sector. And we say private sector, we mean everybody from the smallest farmer to the largest business. How can we get the public and private sector working together? And how can we make sure they collaborate with the local indigenous communities who are basically the stewards of this incredible asset, who have to be at the table? Another reason I commend the science panel for the Amazon, because you have the communities at the table at this report. And one of the places we have to collaborate better really is around investment. And this is something, of course, that Professor Sachs raised. We need to invest more in the Amazon. We need to invest to create that pathway out of poverty while growing the forest, not diminishing it. And we know to be able to do that, we have to tap into private finance, including private climate finance. Thinking about getting more international public finance isn't enough. There's never going to be enough money in the GEF. There's never going to be enough money in the GCF. So we have to think about tapping private finance. And to do that, we need to make sure that two things happen. The first, and Guilherme pointed to this, is and of course, so did President Santos, the need for effective government management. We need stronger government institutions that are credible stewards of a strong regulatory framework. The private sector wants clear rules of the game so that they know what the rules of the game are and they have a partner in government with whom they can work. That becomes incredibly important. But we also need to better use international public finance from institutions like my own, the World Bank, so that, for example, we can invest in the kind of quality infrastructure that Guilherme talked about. The kind of infrastructure that will get goods from the Amazon to market, will get services and people outside the Amazon into the Amazon to see the incredible things that are there, but do it in a way that's responsible, that's sustainable, and allows the Amazon to really embrace a green future. And this is incredibly important. And this is what we see as we read the 33 chapters, is not just that the chapters themselves and the substance of the report speak to this need for thinking about an integrated conservation and development future that is built on the dreams of the people who live there, not on the demands of outsiders. But that it's not just substance that matters, how we come to this conclusion matters. And I again commend the science panel for pulling together homegrown scientists and your own experts and communities for looking inside for the answers and no longer looking outside for those good ideas. We at the bank, whether it's through our Amazon Sustainable Landscape Program, whether it's through all our colleagues working across the Amazon, we stand ready to disseminate these lessons and the results of these wonderful 33 chapters, but also to answer the call for action so that the future you as Amazon people want is a future we can help you achieve. Thank you, Ilona.
Thank you so much, Valerie. All very important points. And thank you for highlighting the importance of climate finance, because, you know, we have the solutions. We need the right arrangements, creative arrangements to just be able to implement them. So I will just quickly try to show us again the video from Gregorio Díaz Mirabal. And so let's see if we're lucky to hear from him.
Muy cordial. Un saludo a toda la humanidad, a todo el planeta, desde la Amazonía, desde la Panamazonía, desde la Coica. Soy José Gregorio Díaz Mirabal, del pueblo Huáquena y Curripaco, de la triple frontera entre Venezuela, Colombia y Brasil. Actualmente soy el coordinador general de la COICA, una organización indígena internacional que representa a los 511 pueblos indígenas de la cuenca amazónica, ubicado entre 9 países de Sudamérica, a la cual nosotros no la vemos con fronteras, sino como un ser vivo. La Amazonía para nosotros es nuestra casa, es un bioma, es un ser vivo que necesita en este momento del apoyo de la humanidad. Dicho esto, quiero reconocer ante ustedes, los que nos oyen, el informe preliminar que se va a presentar en el día de hoy y saludar a todos los miembros del panel científico por la Amazonía en búsqueda de soluciones. Nosotros consideramos que la ciencia en este momento representada en el panel científico, los pueblos y nacionalidades indígenas de la Amazonía, la tecnología y nuestra ciencia, nuestro conocimiento indígena, nuestra cosmovivencia territorial se unen en este informe para dar un mensaje de preocupación, pero también de propuesta al mundo, a las empresas, a los bancos, a los gobiernos. Queremos la voluntad de nuestros gobiernos de salir adelante y salvar la Amazonía y a nuestros pueblos. Y es por eso que hacemos un llamado urgente a articular, a mejorar el sistema económico que respete la naturaleza, que respete la selva amazónica, a valorar los conocimientos que han permitido que los territorios indígenas sigan siendo los territorios mejor conservados del planeta y que nos permitan participar plenamente en un plan de acción con la ciencia, con la voluntad de los gobiernos y con una economía distinta y un plan de soluciones para la selva amazónica. Finalmente, solo pedirles su voluntad, su apoyo para que esta iniciativa de la ciencia de los pueblos indígenas sea valorado, sea respetado y que sea desarrollado en un plan que nos permita mantener la vida en este planeta. Y es por eso que hoy le decimos a todos ustedes, por favor, salvemos la humanidad, superemos esta crisis económica, climática, sanitaria, alimentaria y esta extinción de la biodiversidad, respetando este informe, apoyando este informe donde está la ciencia de nuestros pueblos, la ciencia de nuestros hermanos especialistas en estudios científicos, y solo falta el apoyo, la voluntad de los gobiernos, de los bancos, de las empresas y de todos los seres humanos. Muchísimas gracias.
So a very important message from Gregorio. So the Amazon is a live being, and there's so much to discuss. We're getting to our brief Q&A session now. We got a lot of questions, and I'm sure there will be many of other events of this kind, just discussing the findings of this report. It says, as we said, 33 chapters, so there will be a lot to discuss. So I apologize in advance for not getting to all your questions. There will be more opportunities. So I would like just to start with Mercedes. If you could answer a question that came, if you agree with the recent research that says that regions of the Amazon rainforest are now emitting more CO2 than they absorb. So will the Amazon stop being a carbon sink soon? When?
Thank you, Ilona, for this question. This is a quite important one. Precisely today, a paper was published in Nature, and some of the authors of this paper are also authors in the SPA. So what they are showing is in the east part of the Amazon, because of the simultaneous impacts of climate change, deforestation, and forest degradation, the forest is emitting more carbon than absorbing. But this is so far restricted to this part of the Amazon. It's important to stress that the Amazon is a large region in the SPA, considering the Amazon from the high Andes until the low parts of the forest. And we have a gradient, a rainfall gradient, and a seasonality gradient from the west to the east part of the Amazon. So in this precisely in the east part of the Amazon, where we concentrate the major impacts of deforestation, degradation, and anthropogenic fires. So we have there very dangerous mixtures of pressures and drives of changes in the region. So about the limits, we still have some uncertainties, but I would say that we have already 8% of the forest is converted and 70% is degraded. So this is almost 40% of the forest under pressure. So this is an experiment I would say that we should not try to perform. So we really need, and I was very concerned when President Santos said that also the deforestation rates in Colombia are also rising as in Brazil. So we really need, based on these recent results and the information consolidated for the science panel, we need really to stop deforestation right now and try to stop also the degradation process. This is important, as mentioned, the Amazon rainforest is an important tipping element in the global earth systems, and this can really jeopardize all the global initiatives to stop climate change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mercedes. There's also a question here for Simone. So when we talk about scientists in the indigenous populations, the indigenous people are not in the scientific knowledge. Can you give us some specific policy opportunities for integrating conservations of indigenous languages and cultures with conservation of biodiversity?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the question. That's a challenging one, but very important one. So thank you for that. First of all, I think I want to add, this is very good because it adds to what Gregorio just presented in the video, and also President Santos spoke before, that indigenous knowledge and indigenous languages are together and encoded. All the knowledge that is encoded in indigenous languages need to be valued and need to be shared and understood for a broader understanding, for a more holistic understanding of the Amazon, for a context-based understanding of the Amazon. And it should be really recognized in equal terms with scientific knowledge because of its long-term, place-based character. Also, avoiding detaching or decontextualizing indigenous knowledge and languages from the places where they develop, because the knowledge and the languages are developed, have been co-evolving with the land. co-evolving with nature, co-evolving with biodiversity. So it's really important to have in mind that decontextualizing and bringing them to just a scientific interpretation it's not appropriate to really value and understand how this knowledge is formed and transmitted. It's very heterogeneous also among the same community. Different people may hold different knowledge about nature, about biodiversity. For example, women might have different knowledge in comparison to men. And sometimes this knowledge is just taking at something like a thing, and it's not, it's really evolving. So I'm just gonna give one example of policies that could be developed to integrate biodiversity and language and linguistic diversity in the Amazon. One example is policies for intercultural education, but intercultural education not only for indigenous peoples, but by indigenous peoples. Also very important to highlight that these policies should be developed in collaboration with indigenous peoples and led by indigenous peoples and local communities as well, and not for indigenous people. So we really need that collaboration and that participation, that participatory approach in the development of this policy. So intercultural education also for non-indigenous peoples, so that people can understand the Amazon from a different perspectives, as President Santos was saying. So for non-indigenous peoples, territorial management policies, socio-ecological monitoring policies, even using technological devices now should value the indigenous language, should value the local concepts and the local designations for places, for events, for processes that happen in the Amazon. Consultation protocols should be developed in the indigenous languages, understanding the system from their own perspective. And also biodiversity inventories and research that should be done by and with indigenous peoples. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Simone. We're almost running out of time, but I would like to take a few more questions. There's one here for Ricardo, which is the public notice of frequency bands to be used for 5G technology was recently launched in Brazil. One of the commitments to be assumed by the winners of the auction is the coverage of federal highways with 4G technology. However, in the Amazon region, transport occurs mainly by waterways, which were excluded from these commitments. So how is the SDSN translating the crucial link between social justice and climate change into action? So I think they're mixing two questions here. So I think one is on the technology, and one is like the commitments into action. So maybe, Ricardo, if you could answer these questions to us.
Ilona, I think this question reflects the lack of institutional coordination toward development in the Amazon. And what is lacking is the vision about what we want from the Amazon. Until now, the answer to this question is the Amazon is the place by which our trucks passes to export soybean and to deliver energy to our continent. And this is inadmissible. This is not correct. It is not a vision sustainable of the Amazon. We have to have an international coordination, institutional and international coordination, in order to have internet connection of very high quality in the forest, as we have to have decentralized energy in the forest and in the cities. We have to elaborate nature-based solutions to floods, etc. It's important to stress that in this moment, we are fighting against deforestation. Eliminate deforestation is not an arrival point, it's a starting point. It's a starting point for a question that all Latin American people have to ask: what we want from the Amazon. My answer is the Amazon is the main opportunity to our continent to move toward the scientific and technological frontier of contemporary development. We will not be in this frontier in microchips or in automobile production, but we have the vocation, the possibility, the opportunity to be in this frontier in the sustainable use of social biodiversity. And this is the way of creating opportunities of jobs and income for fighting against poverty and misery in the Amazon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ricardo. Now one for Marielos. There is a question that says that the successful elements of the Amazon deforestation plan created by the Brazilian government in 2004, the plan to combat deforestation, was the fight against environmental crimes and also human rights violations in the region. However, this institutional apparatus of the federal government has been destroyed currently. So how was the issue of combating illegal practices dealt within the context of the report? And if the report looked only into degradation in the agriculture point of view, or also analyzed illegal mining, for instance? So Marielos, if you could just give us your perception.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. I will start with the most easy one in the sense of in the report, we have indeed dedicated quite some, we actually are providing different options of restoration for different drivers of degradation, like mining, but also for hunting, for overfishing, for illegal trafficking. So all these different drivers of deforestation or degradation and how we can restore those areas subjected to them are included in the report. So if you will have access to the report, I think to the summary chapters, I think you need to look into chapters 28 to 30 more or less to get more detailed information of all these different cases. I only highlighted a couple of them indeed. I think the way that so one of the key aspects that are actually being dealt in the report is illegal activities. And that could be illegal activities due, for example, for land speculation or illegal activities related to the extraction of resources, being that timber, forest products, or hunting for commercial use, or any other illegal activities. So the report, we are highlighting what are the consequences of those activities, but also providing some recommendations of how we could deal with that. And what I think in big lines, I think what we need are really co-management, getting involving local communities in the, for example, in patrolling or monitoring. For example, I know there is this initiative in Bolivia in which indigenous communities have been trained and have been given tools like cell phones with GPS, in which they can monitor the forest during the fire season to indicate where fire is occurring, and then inform to try to combat all these fire cases. So I think there are a lot of potential in terms of looking together for options. But I think what is also important is to see how we can coordinate activities among the different Amazonian countries, among the different states that are part of the Amazon basin. I think that illegality crosses borders. We need to act accordingly to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marielos. Two more questions, one for President Santos and one to Guilherme. So President Santos, I'll start with you. So there is a person that says that you're quite right when you say that politics come above science, when it should be the other way around. However, it seems to be that politics, it is, and it will be above everything else. So is there a way to change this reality? Or even maybe to use the logic of politics in favor of the Amazon and science?
Well, the big challenge for the world today is to give science the place it deserves. Politicians many times do not value science and take decisions without the proper information, the proper evidence, because of political reasons. Politics, of course, is what we need, but good politics. Good politics is making the good decisions based on science. And what I have learned in my political career, and what the pandemic has also fortunately taught us, is that we have to hear science much more. So I think we are in the correct trend. We need to accelerate it. And that's why I think this report is so important. This report, in a way, digested in simple messages, is an extremely powerful message for politicians to give science much more importance in their decisions, for example, with respect to the Amazon.
Thank you very much, President Santos. And final question to Guilherme before hearing from Emma Torres with their closing remarks. So, Guilherme, there is a question on the brain drain. So, how to, I mean, the Amazon suffers from brain drain. So, to adapt to his context, like how the region and can just get science. I'm translating the question as I'm speaking, so sorry for that. So, how the region and scientists and business leaders can be kept in just looking for solutions for the Amazon, because we today face this brain drain to Europe and the US and to other places around the world. So do you have any recommendations on scaling up the investment in green technologies, green business, and to generate attractive jobs that could keep people in the local market? Also, if you think that if the ESG momentum can be catalyzed to just protect the Amazon. If business, finance can take into account the ESG importance to the companies and the finance development to be also a force for the Amazon.
Thanks, Ilona. I think we have a fantastic opportunity as my friend Ricardo said, to enjoy the opportunities of the idea that you described. It's like the green Silicon Valley, the new biotechnology center for the whole world. Many years ago, in an event where in Colombia, I shared the dream of transforming the law, the place with the organized crime, deforestation, the backyards of most of our countries, in a center of production of knowledge, of biotechnologies, in the center to irradiate to the whole world. If we create, with a political agreement, as President Santos said, it starts with politics. If we agreed on the north where we want to go, we will, and we create the governance, the right governance to the region, we will attract the best brains, the investments that are there. When we really need the money arises. How many trillions are invested now? It was needed, yes, it is. But we can create, we could attract a lot of investments and keep brains and attract brains if we create the right conditions to learn with nature, to learn with the rainforest. It is not so, and if we connect, as Ricardo said, without connection, no solutions. So there are a lot of opportunities. We need to do our work.
Thank you so much, Guilherme. That's for sure. We need to do a lot of work. So before I hand over to Emma Torres, Vice President of the Americas and head of the New York office of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, for her closing remarks. So let me thank the Sustainable Development Solutions Network, the World Bank, the authors of the report, the members of the Strategic Committee, and all of you for your enthusiastic engagement. This is such important topic. I hope we all get out of this event just really, really committed to the next steps that are needed. So more than ever, our decisions about how to ensure the conservation and sustainable development of the Amazon must be informed by high quality science. And the Science Panel for the Amazon is a mechanism to achieve this, but it needs sustained support. So,
Ilona,
yes,
no,
please, President Santos.
I just wanted to end with an optimistic and good news. I work with the Wildlife Conservation Society. I'm a member of the board. And talking about conservation and the reversal of bad trends. Simply to share with you the information that we received recently. The population of jaguars in Bolivia has been able to not only stop the downward trend, but is now up substantially. And jaguars have an enormous importance in all of the indigenous communities from Argentina to Mexico. And so I wanted simply to share with you this good piece of news to end on an optimistic trend.
We need this piece of news, but this is excellent news, and I hope more to come, given the amount of I think species that are being threatened now. So thank you, President Santos. And we were just saying that the Science Panel needs this sustained support because the work is just beginning, and we need these multi-stakeholder and networked coalitions to translate this knowledge into action and to be able to address the most intractable common resource problems that we have. So definitely the Science Panel for the Amazon can help inform networked multilateralism, and we need to address the issues that were touched here today. And I think that's the SPA can lend legitimacy to the climate crisis that the basin faces. So the initial findings, as well as draft version for the full report for public consultation, are now online. Please read, share, and provide your inputs. And let's hear from Emma Torres, her closing remarks. And thank you all for being here with us, and keep up with us, because this is just the beginning of this discussion. Please, Emma.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ilona. You're a fantastic moderator. Let me first express my profound gratitude to the panel. It was fantastic, inspirational, and it is the right time. Of course, I want to express on behalf of all of us and the Sustainable Development Solutions Network our profound gratitude to all the scientists that have generously contributed to make this first scientific assessment of the basin. I think it's an amazing contribution. We are all very proud, and it's also a source of inspiration, as Professor Sachs said already. Other followers, one like Congo and others. And I think this is very, very inspirational. And thank you all very much, and particularly our co-chairs, Carlos Nobre and Andrea, that have steered the whole process. I like to briefly tell about what are we thinking on the next steps. And I think very much thinking of all this effort has to become action and impact. And I think in that sense, we are going to concentrate the next year or so in the massive communication and in stakeholder engagement, and mobilize our scientists, of the 220 scientists, to work at the different levels: global, regional, national, local, with indigenous communities and local communities, to go in depth with the messages and the findings of the report, We also want obviously to engage with the private sector, the financial sector, as well as, more importantly as well, the academic community, the scientific community. We need to make sure that in order to get this new economy, this new bioeconomy, there is serious investment in science, technology, and innovation. The only way we can create this new economy is if our countries seriously invest in science, technology, innovation. And unfortunately, our region doesn't have a very good record on investing in science and technology innovation like other regions in the world. So there is a call of this panel precisely to go further, to inspire new scientists and to really mobilize knowledge and innovation. I think there's also very clear messages. I think we need to make sure that at the level of policy making, we embark on a commitment for zero deforestation. This should be a commitment towards Glasgow, zero deforestation by 2030, zero degradation, and as well as large scale projects for restoration. I think there's a tremendous opportunities there. And finally, to really make a huge call of action for investment in science, technology, innovation, in order that we can have a better future for the populations in the Amazon, but also for the countries in the region. Thank you all very much. And please, as Ilona has invited you, you can download you can see our report has gone for public consultations, but we also have the 33 chapters in brief. So you can see them in brief. So it's 4 pages with maps, so you can be able to enjoy the different pieces as much as the big report, which is the big report will require a more thorough reading. Thank you all very much, and looking forward to continue this engagement because this year is going to be very active and for all of us. Thank you.